It comes around really quickly every week. It is time again for Film Focus with Emily Cook. How are you, lady? Did you have a good birthday?
I had an excellent birthday, thanks, Ashlea.
Really good. So what have you been up to this week at Real Vision? HQ?
Yeah, Real Vision HQ. We've been working actually with the Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, IOSH, on the Isle of Man. They've hired Real Vision to create some talking head videos. Basically, we interviewed their various practitioners from different disciplines and had them speaking about what they do as their job and how being a member of this organisation is helpful to them. But it was really, really, really cold because we filmed it outside, just outside the sea terminal. And it was a bit bitter.
So you're not afraid of getting kind of wrapped up and getting out in the elements?
No, not at all. I ended up looking a bit like a scarecrow, to be honest, with my hair. But
windswept and desirable, I think.
I'm not sure about the desirable, but windswept certainly. And yeah, the Department of Infrastructure, they were really, really helpful, allowing us to film down in there. It's great when you get support from the government. About a year ago, when I was filming my short film, Unkept, I was able to film in the legislative buildings, and that's really great that they gave that support, and that's what they can offer on the Isle of Man. So
you've had a chilly but productive week by the sounds of things.
Yes, a chilly but productive week.
So looking forward then, you're one to watch. I had not heard about this film until last night, but all of a sudden it's kind of exploded on Twitter. It's called Argo. I have no clue. Tell me about it.
My one to watch this week, yes, you're right, it's Argo. It's a political thriller and it's based on real events and reveals the previously classified truth behind the miraculous escape of 6 Americans during the Iran hostage crisis of 1979. What's interesting is it's actually directed and stars Ben Affleck. And normally that for people rings alarm bells when you have somebody who was originally an actor directing for a start. People are maybe a bit distrusting of that, but also when they're trying to direct and star in it. However, it's been getting really, really good reviews, and on IMDb, it's got 8.3 as its review, which is really respectable, actually.
Really high. Well, people just seem to be loving it. I didn't actually even realise that it was a thriller, to be honest. And one of the tweets that I'd seen said, you'll be surprised that it's actually based on real life events. These things actually happened. And the way that they've been put together is just so clever. And if it's on at the Palace, I think it's one of those things I've bought into the hype. I'm going to have to go and see it. Even though I'm not a massive thriller fan, I'm going to have to bring something to cover my eyes. But Ben Affleck has actually been recognised for an award for this.
He has.
Film as well.
The Santa Barbara International Film Festival have recognised him to be awarded the Modern Master Award, which previous people who have actually won it include James Cameron, obviously who did Titanic, Christopher Nolan and Clint Eastwood. So he's really up there with getting this award.
That's a prestigious bunch, isn't it?
You've got nothing to lose going to see it, and you might enjoy it, Ashlea. Who knows?
I'll let you know how we get on next week, shall I?
Yes,
I'm going to make a point. Still not seen Skyfall either, because I can't get in.
You can't get in?
No, there's still no tickets available.
They told me you were barred.
She's cheeky, eh? Right, coming up, you're speaking to Christy DeHaven about her latest filmmaking endeavour, but she's also a pretty talented singer-songwriter and has very kindly given us a copy of her debut album, Girl Undone, and here's a beauty of a track from it called This Is the Life.
That was Christy DeHaven with her track This Is the Life from her debut album Girl Undone. And Christy is well known across the island as a very successful singer-songwriter, but she's also probably one of the most talented people I know, incredibly creative, and I'm very fortunate to have her joining us today. Hello.
I have no idea what to say now. That was just far too nice. Emily, you're lovely.
Well, that's true. But you're joining us in your capacity as a filmmaker, not as a singer-songwriter.
I am. I don't get to do the singer-songwriter stuff very often, actually, because I'm usually sort of holed up in an editing suite making movies and things. Yeah, and that's why you invited me here today, because you were very lovely and talked a lot about our latest project on your last show.
That's right. You've just been at the Sachii Gallery in London showing your film created with yourself and Dave, the Watch Makers Apprentice. Can you tell us a bit about that project?
Yeah, sure. It came about because Dave and I were going to be doing a series of profiles of interesting local people. And one of the people that we were going to profile was Roger Smith, who's a watchmaker who lives on the Isle of Man. And we'd heard about his handmade watches and how beautiful they were. And in the back of our minds, we also knew about this other character called George Daniels. So we contacted Roger and said, would he mind if we did a 5-minute profile on him? He said, yeah, sure. So we went up to interview him. He talked quite a lot in the interview about George Daniels, this mysterious character. And we weren't sure if he was still around at that point because we knew he was an elderly gent. And Roger said he was, and he lived quite close. So we thought, well, we'll try and get an interview with him as well. In the meantime, the profile series didn't get off the ground, but we did manage to get an interview with George. It took 3 or 4 times to get to him because he was really quite unwell when we were approached. It was actually through his housekeeper, Caroline. And we actually got all the way up to the house 2 or 3 times and got a phone call just at the last minute saying, I'm really sorry, he's not well enough today. So we'd go all the way back again. And eventually this one morning we got all the way to the house expecting a phone call. No phone call came, so we rang the doorbell. Caroline came to the door and let us in, and sure enough, George was led into this room, and he was just, it was like a magical day. It was just so magical. The man was incredible, and because of that interview, we realised that we had to do so much more, and the what we got out of him was so beautiful that we thought we have to make a programme about him and Roger and their relationship.
Snowballed from there.
Yeah, so that's what we were doing, was this documentary. We knew that George and Roger were important people in the watchmaking world. We didn't quite realise that they're the equivalent of Lady Gaga in music. They're superstars. And so as soon as we started making this project, and I do have a habit of spending a bit too much time on social networking sites talking about what we're doing.
There's nothing wrong with that, Christy.
I know. You taught me everything I know, Emily. So people heard about it, and we're very friendly with the executive of George's estate, David Newman, and he had mentioned the project to this magazine called QP. And the editor was at that time putting together the event Salon QP, which is a fine watches exhibition which happens every year. It's the 3rd year they've run it. And he contacted us directly and said, please, 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 could he show some of the Watchmakers Apprentice at Salon QP?
Wow.
Yeah.
What an honour.
I know, it really was an honour. So we couldn't be the full thing because we haven't finished it yet, for one thing. And for another thing, we still are totally unfunded on this project. So we're sort of trying to do it in our spare time, and it's an 1.5 hour long documentary. So it's taking longer than we'd anticipated. But we put together a special preview screening just for the Sachii Gallery. And it was amazing. We had our own little room, a little gallery room and everything for it. And yeah.
I've seen some of the photos on your Facebook page, well, on DAM Productions' Facebook page, DAM
right.
Productions.
Thank you.
It looks like fantastic because you had drawings by a local artist.
Yeah, Andrew Martin.
Martin, who good friend of both of us.
Yeah.
He created these lovely caricatures of both the both George Daniels and Roger Smith. Uh-huh. Look, it looks really great.
Yeah, it was beautifully laid out.
It looked lovely, and such an honour to be part of that. What kind of feedback did you get?
Incredible. I mean, really incredible, considering it was about 45-50 minutes of the programme that we showed, and it's not even the final version of that. But I was so nervous because we were showing it to all of the people who knew George and Roger, and I don't know if, in case no one knew, George did actually sadly pass away in the end of last year, so he's never actually seen this programme. So we were quite nervous. But instantly, when we were there for the VIP screening on the Thursday night to introduce it and say a bit about the documentary, and as soon as it finished playing, there was sort of a hush in the room.
Oh, wow.
And then applause. And then we just had, the first person that came up was Roger, so I'm so pleased because Roger came up and he was really quite moved, and he said he found it very hard to stay in the room because he was so overcome with emotion watching it. David Newman, George's friend, absolutely loved it. And then since then we've had journalists sending us emails. We've had people from the Wall Street Journal contact us wanting to know more. We've had one of the sort of the most respected journalists in the watchmaking world, Elizabeth Dewar, I think her name was, sent us an email saying she'll cover it whenever we're done. We just have to keep her in touch with her. And yeah, just amazing feedback over the past few days. The inbox has had all kinds of emails coming in. And I'm just really pleased with it because it's not as much as it's about two watchmakers, it's about their relationship. So it's more of a sort of people programme than it is about watches. And we're all about that, the three of us. We like the whole emotion and tugging on the heartstrings.
And that really comes across when you have a great group of people working together.
Passionate about it.
I mean, I had the benefit of working with both you and Dave in the last month on the culture project that we've been doing.
Yeah, it's been great fun.
And when you have a good team, a close-knit team, you get stuff done so much quicker.
You do, don't you?
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been fab.
So what's next? Is it going to be televised? What can we expect?
What we want to do with it, as soon as it's finished, we've got Andrew Martin that you mentioned. He created these character illustrations because we're going to have an element of animation in there of sort of like the two characters over their workbench and everything sort of working away. So we need to get cracking on that, and he's also been doing some 3D animation for us of the universe and space and time, because it's also about that, so we're sort of integrating that as well. So we've got that to do, and I've got to finish off the edit of the pictures and sound. Then we're aiming for festivals first, because it is very much a kind of festival film, and we're hoping we can maybe get a laurel or two on it if people deem it good enough. And also at the minute documentaries are quite popular on the film circuit, so we're sort of aiming for that market first. Then after that we're also going to be speaking to Sky Arts and Storyville and people like that about getting it to broadcast after festivals, and then eventually it'll be on DVD.
Can I ask you what your tip would be if people have an idea for a documentary and they maybe know a tiny bit about filmmaking or have access to even an iPhone? What kind of tips would you give them?
Well, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, really, in that you can film anything, well, on an iPhone or anything. It's so easy now to go out and get stuff. I would research the project quite intensely so that you know absolutely everything you can about it. Sound is so important, so even if you are just using an iPhone to get the images, if you're doing any interviews at all, I highly recommend you actually spend a little bit of money on a microphone, because if you're trying to capture a moment and really trying to get someone across on camera, it's actually the sound that's more important. So I would definitely recommend getting a microphone. But yeah, I would just research the subject, try and think of it as a story. So think of it almost like writing a screenplay, because you've got to get all the elements in there. As much as it's factual, you've still got to make it play out as if it's, you know, make people think they're watching a film. But yeah, I just say go do it, really. There's too much out there that needs to be captured to just leave it. So yeah.
Well, that's great advice for anybody out there. So hopefully they'll be inspired by what you've done, and they'll be keeping an eye out on your Facebook page.
Yeah. And we've finally set up a website, the watchmakersapprentice.com, so they can check that out now.
Excellent.
As well.
I'll log on that later on and have a look at that as well. Good luck with the Watchmakers Apprentice and the next stages of it.
Thank you, and to you with all your projects. Speak to you soon.
So do you think we can persuade her into doing a session then, Emily?
I would hope so. I mean, we're definitely after getting high calibre people, and with her supporting Scott Matthews last Saturday night, you don't really get much more high calibre. So.
It definitely ticks the boxes, doesn't it? Speaking of which, then, it's time for our session replay. Which out of the tracks that we've already recorded with some fantastic artists on the Isle of Man would you like to play again on Saturday Night Live?
Well, I think this week I'd have to pick Joey Wilde. He's got such a beautiful voice.
Brilliant, we'll hear that now. And speaking of Joey, he's on the show next week with some exclusive album tracks. Thank you very much, Emily Cook. It's always a pleasure. We'll see you again same time next week. But this is Joey Wilde with his cover from the Saturday Night Live session he recorded with us here at Manx Radio Towers. It's his version of Jason Mraz and I'm Yours.
Now you tongue-tied me in your bed, I felt it. I tried to be